with Smitty's fly box. Today we're tying a bead Prince Nymph. You can tie it without a bead, obviously, but this is a fly featured in our beginner fly tying box. So let's just get started. That's a Daiichi hook, size 10, and a 3.2 millimeter gold bead. I'm using 8/0 thread, and I'm just going to start by attaching my thread just somewhere in the middle. And then the first thing I'm going to do is build a little underbody using dubbing. You can use lead wire if you'd like to make this fly really heavy. But I'm just going to take some regular black dubbing. This is going to be covered up anyway. And I'm going to build up just an underbody up to that bead. And the reason for this is peacock, when you tie it in, will collapse down a little bit. So I want to keep somewhat of a beefy body on this fly. So let's just begin dubbing the body up to the bead. And I want to dub about the same width as the bead. And we'll just come back over it like so. If we have a few stragglers, we can trim those off. But that, again, that's going to be covered up. I'm going to add just a little more. So what I want is, I want it to taper down kind of from the bead right down to about just above the point of the hook, and then we can start the fly right there. The first thing we're going to do is tie in a tail, so I'm using goose biots. We're just going to take 2 of those, snip those off, and they'll naturally curve in one direction together, so we're going to take them back to back. Take one of them, lay it back to back, just get them, takes a second in your fingers there to get them lined up how you like them. So you want it forked like that. Now the tail, we want it to be about half of the length of the hook shank. So once I've got that measurement, I'll switch it to my left hand, and then you can just slide that right through the bead there. Just kind of take your biots like that and position that. And then with nice loose thread wraps, come around and gather those. Don't let go with your left hand, and then we'll make a few turns going back to our tie-in point, which is directly above the barb of the hook. There's the barb directly above. Now we can snip off these butt ends and make a few turns just to continue our taper and tie down any of those loose ends. All right, now I need to tie in some gold flash for the ribbing, so I just have one strand, a couple inches long. And I'm going to tie it in on the far side of the hook, so just lay it along the back side or on top, just somewhere in the middle right there, and it'll kind of roll to that side. Just steady it all the way back to our tie-in point. And then we're ready for the peacock, so I've got a nice peacock feather here. I'm going to take 2 of those peacock strands. You could use 3 if you'd like. You could probably use 1. But I like to, again, build up that body. I don't really like slim Prince Nymphs. I like them a little beefier. So advance our thread up halfway point, tie that down, back to our tie-in point, and then we'll turn right around and bring our thread right up here behind the bead. And now we can begin wrapping this peacock going forward. Careful of the point of the hook there. And we'll just build the body of the fly, working our way right up to the bead. And then we can tie that down, just hold it straight up in the air with our right hand and drop our thread over with our left hand about 3 times. And we can snip off the excess. All right, now our flash here, we're going to counter wrap this. So we're going to kind of wrap this over the top towards us and just build a nice rib through that peacock. Again, right up here to the eye behind the bead. And we'll tie that down. Hold it with our right hand, drop our thread over with our left hand about 3 times. And we're just making nice wraps, make a few extra wraps right there behind the bead. Now we're ready for the collar. I'm just going to use regular brown saddle hackle that I have. Really, you can use hen hackle. any kind of brown hackle, even if it's a little oversized, that's not a problem. Even if it's a little undersized, that's not a problem either. So I'm just going to prepare a feather like that, and we'll tie that in just in front of the hook. Oops. And we're tying this all down right behind the bead. And now we're just going to make about 2 turns with this brown hackle. 1, 2, like that. And we'll hold it straight up in the air with our right hand and drop our thread over. And we'll capture that and tie down that brown hackle. All right, this is actually kind of some stiff, dry, more like dry fly hackle. That's okay, but I'm just going to make a few turns and build a little collar right there and push back that hackle so it flows back. We'll have a little tiny black collar right there. And so it looks like that. Now we're ready for the white Prince goose biots on top. So again, we'll take 2 of these, snip these off. Now this time we're not going to fork them out. We're going to keep them in the same. We're not going to put them back to back. Just even the tips up. And you can do these together, or if it's a little bit of a struggle, you can do one at a time. But we want those tips to extend about where the base of the tail is. So once we've got that, just hold it in place. And we'll come around right there on that collar and make just a couple of wraps like that. Now it's going to lay pretty flat right now. We'll push them up here in just a minute. Now one thing I like to do just to keep those from slipping out, just fold those back over and then tie them down just on top, and then they'll stay secured in there most of the day fishing. And again, we'll go back to our little collar right there, a little thread base, and cover up any imperfections we may have. And now we can do a whip finish. And then we'll trim off those butt ends. Just come in there real tight. You might have a couple little tiny nubs showing, but I don't worry too much about those. And get those whites sticking up a little more like that. We'll dab that with some head cement, and we're ready to fish.